Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my Blacadian universe. It is Black History Month, and as you know, based on the name of the podcast, I am Black and I'm Canadian. I am Black every day, but I am extra Black this month. Uh, Very proudly celebrating here in Canada. You know, uh, this February is actually 30 years of Black history in Canada and 100, I believe, years in America. So it just, goes to show that, don't even get me started, Canadians are always late in, recognizing um, our role in oppressing Black people in this country. We think we're immune because of the Underground Railroad. Sigh. But anyways, 30 years of Black history here in Canada, celebrating it out loud and proud, especially during these times where oppression is, really at an all-time high across all vulnerable people. And it really is about showing the world that some of the most oppressed people um, will never be eradicated and beaten back. And, following the lead of Black people, just keep fighting and resisting oppression, and you will persevere. I hope that this Black History Month, as I'm celebrating, I know that's the lesson I'm taking into this month, um, and really spreading that message around, keep fighting, and we're going to win. So, on that thought, it made me reflect on a question that I've gotten a lot um, over the years from people in my life, friends, and I've talked about it occasionally on this podcast, and I was really reflecting on it because of, current events, but also because it's Black History Month. And when I talk about being Black and proud, sometimes people, various times over the years, have asked me, different people have asked me if I ever wished I was white, right? And I find that so interesting because they never ask you if I wish I was Asian or, Indian or indigenous. It's always, do I wish I was white? And I'm going to get into why I find that so interesting. So let's talk about it. Because that question always comes in the exact same form of being white. It implies so many things. So it implies, one, that whiteness is the top ranking. So it's not even like, would I, want a lesser form of oppression, being like, oh, this just isn't like some fantastical question, like, do you want to be a unicorn? This is about, as a human being, do you want to be the best category of human being? Do you wish that all of your problems would just melt away if you were a white person? And, you know, that's always how I have viewed that question. So I always found it very, very interesting that the people asking me this question never truly appreciate how steeped in racism it is, how offensive it is, how they're sort of outing themselves in the sense that they are saying that I must have had this wish in my life because my life must be so terrible in the face of anti-Black racism. And, I've you can, scroll through my Instagram history, but I, you know, always say that my answer, and this is true, I think I've said this before, is all the Black people I know, we would choose to be Black still in every lifetime, and I feel like um that's my answer. Well, first of all, let me just clarify. If, yeah, no, and I said this as well, where I'd say, do I wish that anti-Black racism doesn't exist? 100%. But do I want to not be Black? Hell no. And so, um, it's funny because the people, when I when I have that response, depending on, of course, who's asking me, sometimes I'm just like, no, I'm Black. But for the real ones, for lack of a better translation, for the people that I know that this is actually going to help them learn and grow, and they're asking this question, and then they can appreciate how truly offensive it is. When I tell them that, yeah, I wish racism didn't exist, but do I want to be Black? Hell yes. Um, why the hell wouldn't I be? Do I want people to recognize my greatness and, beauty and intelligence and my full humanity? Of course. Who doesn't want that? But I wouldn't trade it. Don't want an easy out. If I could wave a magic wand, that's not what I want. I want to be myself. So, the people that don't believe that answer, and there are people that don't, they look at me like I'm lying, that it's just I have no imagination, that I can't even allow myself to have this, my heart's deepest desire of wanting whiteness for myself. They're just, I'm like, yeah, you're a lost cause because you don't get it. Like loving myself as a Black woman is a revolutionary, shocking, inconceivable reality for them. And so, they are just so deep, deep, deep into the, sunken place that they're just gonna have to get their own way out. But when I tell people this and they, absorb that reality, they start questioning the question, right? Because then they're thinking, oh, she means it. That is truth to her. So interesting. And then they start questioning why they would frame the question that way. Why would they not want, you know, whiteness eradicate, the white supremacy eradicated? Why is it that I have to eliminate a state of being to try to fit into some ideal that doesn't exist for me? I don't want that. I just want to be having peace in this comfortable skin that I'm in. If I said to somebody, oh, I, there's so many ideal standards that people say are not the ideal state of being, and people will accept that. But when it comes to race, people will always assume, because this idea of white supremacy is so ingrained, that we have to accept it. I don't accept it. I have never accepted that in my life. And I talk about it often, loudly and proudly, that my parents really, really raised me right. in letting me see that that is a lens that the world is trying to place on me and my eyes, and to remove that from my psyche and just accept and love who I am and my culture and my blackness and my skin and me. And I tell the world who I am, what I like, what I'm proud of, what is important to me, and not centering this ideal of whiteness as perfection. That's not what I'm aspiring to be. So, yes, I choose to be Black, even in a world that will tell me should want otherwise, and that it is not ideal. I don't desire that. I'd still be Black. So the other piece of why I would choose to be Black, besides, everything, besides the passion, the culture, the fun, the the laughter, the ability to find joy in everything, the family, the closeness, the style, the beauty, the intelligence, the resilience, besides all that. I mean, I could just go on. I could find all the adjectives, but um it's an awareness that I bring to the world that, dare I say it, someone who was born white has to work towards. When we talk about um, these things about decolonizing your mind and all these things, you actively have to work on it. And, I do as well. As much as I try to apply that lens, it is seeped into everything that we see. Um, Especially here in, Canada and America, North America, we have to really work against decolonizing our mind and how these systems of how we operate and policies and laws and just how we live our lives every day, we have to really work to decolonize our minds. But I'm starting with a head start as a Black woman. I know that I have to do those things, that it's there already, if that makes sense. Like, I know I have to critically question systems that I interact with, products that I consume, services that I receive, programs that I watch. I always, 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 much to the, detriment of those around me, sometimes. Um, I always want to make sure that I'm doing so in a responsible anti-oppression way. And that awareness to me has made my life richer and more fulfilling and just um, more satisfying. So that's sort of one of the things that I think uh, I can't really define. Well, I guess it's that awareness that I'm talking about. It's just one of those things where I think, and I talk about being this as a anti a racist educator, is that I see people all the time, that, have been, you know, alive for a long time. And when I share some of these thoughts and, you know, sort of these kinds of ideas that don't center white supremacy. And I see that light bulb flick on in their mind because I've just sort of exposed them to an idea that nobody in their circle has ever shared before. And they can see the light. And it's one of my favorite things. Um, but then I know people will, there's also that sadness in the sense that they've been operating in such a narrow way their whole lives, and they have a lot of learning or unlearning to do. It can feel overwhelming. And so one of the wonderful things that I love about Blackness is that the way I see people, the the empathy, the, you know, kindness, the compassion that we can have um, for all people, when that's so often not returned to us, is something I think is something I wouldn't trade for anything in the world. It's one of the best things about being Black, I think, is just that awareness of, you know, being kind matters and can mean so much and is life changing. And I think when you are hated so much for the skin you're in, um, the fact that so many Black people can still have that compassion for others, even when, you know, it's not returned. It's a beautiful thing. And one of the things that I love about being a Black person. So, all of that to say, this Black History Month, I am so proud of being Black. Always, this month, yesterday, today, tomorrow, I'm always proud because I am proud of my ancestors, of our history, of our passion, of our resilience, and how we are going to share and our fight and, you know, show the world that we don't let people that want to divide us and destroy us and, you know, make us less than triumph. We always fight back. And I think that, you know, I know that our history, our stories, our people, our existence is an act of resilience. And I hope that it shines this month as a reminder to everybody what is possible. We are going to thrive. We're going to thrive despite what, you know, people are trying to destroy. I think, yes, we're an example of that. So look to Black people, and as we say, we're going to be all right. As always, thank you so much for listening. Please be sure to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you're celebrating this Black History Month. I hope you're supporting Black-owned businesses, making donations to um, community organizations that are supporting Black communities. I know all communities are in need, but especially this Black History Month, make sure that you're spreading, if you have some, you know, to spare, please make sure that you support Black-owned businesses. Happy Black History Month. I'll talk to you next time.